Hi, this is Greg Lamberson, and you are listening to Without Your Head. And I have a long history of film without heads. We have no head in Slime City, we have no head in Killer Rack, and we have no head in Johnny Gruesome. Check out all those headless films.
Well, welcome to the station of decapitation without your head. I'm Nasty Neil.
That would make me Terrible Troy.
And we're joined here by makeup artist Craig Lindberg. It's very cool to have you here.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Awesome.
No, I was looking at stuff. You had I first heard of you when we had Gregory Lamberson on.
Yes. I did the makeup on Johnny Gruesome for him, and I've known Greg for many years, since like the late 1980s.
Yeah, so I know you did Slime City Massacre, but how did you guys meet?
Well, it's kind of a gray area. I got to admit, my memory isn't as good as it probably used to be. But I think where it came from is when I started doing makeup, I used to go to the local Barnes and Nobles and so forth and so on. And what I would do is, to start my career or begin it, I used to take in the newspapers, the backstage newspapers and productions, publications and such. And I used to write down or look through the newspapers what seemed to be kind of cool. Even if they were not looking for makeup artists, I saw something that's kind of cool and I would submit a resume. And I kind of think that's how I got to know Greg, because he put a posting in there for a horror movie, looking for actors, and I just submitted there. And I did, that was, I believe, Undying Love. Way back when, and then ended up doing a bunch of other things for him, which was Naked Fear. Now, with Slime City Massacre, I didn't work directly with, because I was busy, but I submitted a bunch of prosthetics and things like that to the movie. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, how did you get involved in makeup artists to become a makeup artist to begin with?
Well, I grew up watching horror movies and monster movies, back when you couldn't, it wasn't home video or anything like that, where you had to go to the movies to see some of those. And, we had at our local affiliate here at ABC, Channel 7, we used to have the 4:30 movie, and they used to have like Monster Week, which had Godzilla or Gamera. You had Apes Week, so you had all 5 of the Planet of the Apes movies, and then you had Poe Week, which was all the Roger Corman, Vincent Price movies. And my parents were big moviegoers. We went to the movies constantly, and my mother's favorite genre was horror movies. So I saw, and back then there wasn't a lot of the change. It wasn't like an R. Well, there was an R, but it wasn't like PG or anything like this. So I saw movies like I Spit on Your Grave and all those kind of stuff when I was in the movie theater. Mm-hmm. So I was just exposed to it constantly. And I liked it. It was just kind of cool. There's nothing cool seeing a guy in a big rubber suit destroy buildings.
Sure.
It was awesome. And that's kind of how I got into it. Yeah, man, it's awesome. I mean, I remember, seeing more heads cut off before I saw, and I'm going to date myself here, I saw The Exorcist in the movie theaters. I saw, when that came out, I was a kid, and I'm watching zombies rip people apart and eating flesh, and my father saying, "No, it's just chicken. Don't worry about it. It's not real." And, and shit like that, and and all these, The Exorcist and The Omen and all these movies. Like I said, and I kind of wanted to be an actor first, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. But it didn't really pan out for me. It was like one of those things where you go, and I felt like they chose you by the way you looked, by how hot, how tall you were, all this kind of stuff, especially in the beginning. And then I had a friend who was going to NYU, and, we started talking about makeup. We saw the movie, American Werewolf in London, and everyone started talking about makeup. So I took classes in it through the local colleges and so forth and so on, and I saw that, and it triggered something in me. I kind of dug it. I mean, I remember kind of making myself up as a kid, going to the local corner drugstore and buying the vampire blood and the scar wax and all that kind of stuff, and making myself up. You know what I'm talking about, right? And just walking around the neighborhood trying to freak people out. And all that kind of shit. And then the guy I talked about, my friend in the movie, NYU, he said, "Oh, come do my movie." And I did his movie. And then that other student said, "Hey, you do makeup. You want to do makeup on my movie?" And then it just progressed over and over and over. And then I started doing, I did a lot of student films that I had a passion for it. I loved it. It was fun as fuck to do that kind of shit,
Yeah. And you mentioned American Werewolf in London, and as a kid, I think even still now it holds up. Just the greatest transformation scene ever in a werewolf movie.
Yeah, and it's still, and when they talked about it being practical and having to be practical back then, because God knows what CGI would have looked like back then. It had to be practical. It was done really smart, and it was just done so. It was unheard of. But all you really had was like lap dissolve, in terms of like the old werewolf and the Wolfman movies, and and things like this. Back then, it probably scared the shit out of people, but now you kind of go, So it broke ground, and it combined a lot of things together. You were scared and you laughed at the same time. Mm-hmm. And when this guy told me, "Oh, I want to be a makeup artist," I kind of went, "Yeah, makeup. I kind of like that kind of shit." And then the next thing you know, like I said, it just naturally progressed for me. It's something that it triggered that passion, and that's one thing I could definitely say, that if you have a passion for anything, you're going to do it no matter what happens. Mm-hmm. And that's what I had. I had more passion for doing makeup than I had for acting.
Now, were you artistic at all before that, or did you make a lot of stuff?
Yeah, it was like when I was a kid. I used to do a lot of stuff with Play-Doh. I used to make spaceships out of Play-Doh. I remember what's weird. It's like anything that looked sort of it became a spaceship to me, because I was a big sci-fi kid too. I watched Star Trek and Lost in Space and all, and all the Gary Anderson type shows and things like this. And I remember we used to have a star that was on top of our Christmas tree, and to me that was a spaceship. But I used to take it and fly it around the house. And I remember my mom used to have hair curlers back then, with like the plastic hair curlers, and I used to make those into spaceships and all that kind of stuff. Yep. And I made puppets out of them, like marionette puppets. And, I used what I had. Like I remember just sitting in front of the TV sets and always making stuff. And the big thing in terms of the artistic kind of thing kind of came from my dad, because my dad made model kits.
Oh, wow.
So I did too, because, the hobby kind of came with me. So, because that's how you got all the Universal monsters, was through the model kits.
Oh, yeah, the
Aurora models,
those were the best.
Oh, man, they're awesome.
Yep.
I actually just got back into the hobby maybe about 3-4 years ago.
Nice.
And I found buried in, I'm going to, but these kits are from like 1960, and somehow they made it all the way to this time. And I must have put them in a box, buried them somewhere, and I moved, and now I live out here in Long Island, and I was digging shit out, and next thing you know, I'm like, "Hey, what's that?" It wrapped up in newspaper, and it was the Hunchback from Notre Dame,
nice.
the original, Aurora kit. I said, "Oh man!" So now I'm repainting all that stuff and finding all these things, and I'm just having it's just going back, and it's just, just all that kind of shit going on, It's a lot of fun cutting heads off and shit.
Yeah, Troy's my older brother, and he had all the Aurora kits, and they were kind of passed down to me. Yeah, those were amazing.
Yeah, those were just so badass. I loved them all.
I wish I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying, real quick, when you mentioned about spaceships, because this made me remember something. I used to take, it was like the styrofoam out of these ice cream cones my mom would buy. They were like sugar cones, so they were triangles. I mean, they were, like a cone at the... And I remember I would take the styrofoam that they're empty, and you could cut like a little hole to put like action figures in, because they looked exactly like a 2-seat like spaceship. And I remember using them quite often. Yeah. So I haven't thought about it for years until you mentioned that.
What I used to do is I used to take like the milk cartons, like the plastic styrofoam milk cartons. And I used to fill up the bathtub full of water. And I used to have all these, these little plastic dinosaurs you got when you were a kid. They were all like the old style plastic dinosaurs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep.
And I used to cut the top off, and they would put them in, and they were launching an army. And of course, in order to them to defend themselves, I would light up plastic straws, and you know how they would melt, and they would just, you had these little flaming balls that would just land on the styrofoam. And God knows what I was doing to my lungs and my brain, because I would close the door so my parents wouldn't see me starting fires in the bathroom and stuff like that. But yeah, in terms of having artistic background, helped. It's absolutely, it helps, because you have that passion already in there. If you're doing that kind of stuff, if you're sitting there, whatever, vegetating and stuff like that. I mean, I watch my fair share of television, sometimes getting together with some friends, we can quote lines from like TV shows that we all grew up on, because, we didn't have cable back then, it was all just what was given to us. But we all grew up around that. And, but so many of us were artistic, and it's all just kind of come to fruition, then we're doing these things.
Stuff like that, not have like you'd have the dinosaurs and stuff, but not having like every playset and all that stuff. It really helps you build imagination. It's like a outlet for your imagination, to create everything around it.
Oh, definitely.
If you feel you go like, oh, I need that, and I don't have that, and it's like, I'll make it.
Yep. I always remember the Hildebrand brothers. So I think it's Tim and Greg, and they used to do that because they didn't have anything as kids, and they would make costumes and act out their own plays, and they were making Robin Hood costumes when they were like 6 years old. I'm like, wow, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
When you give someone, the chance to inspire themselves, and it's especially the big thing is you're not sitting there judging people. And it's just the kids just having a damn good time, and people just having a damn good time. It's just like, it's just so really awesome to see people just kind of just let their imaginations go and have the good time and have fun.
So, when we were talking originally there about Greg Lamberson, so you've worked with him for like decades, I guess. Did you hit it off right away? Like, were you guys friends right away?
Well, it was just like, I was a hired hand at the time, and but we saw eye to eye. I saw like kind of like what he wanted to do, and I brought my my A game for what it was at the time to make sure that this was something I did. Like I always remembered in the movie Undying Love, and there's this one part I was thinking about it because we were thinking about when we were talking about doing this interview. There was this effect that I did on Mary Huner because she played Tom Sweeney's girlfriend in the movie. And there's a part where her throat is ripped out, totally like just ripped out. And it's such an easy effect to do, but if you do it right, it's so effective. And we just use a product called Mortician's Wax, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's some Mortician's Wax. It's what we used as makeup art. And it just looked like, you build up one side, and it looks like, you build it up a little bit so it looks like the throat kind of continues, but it opens up, and you just paint all the actual skin to look like sinew and the windpipe and all that kind of stuff, and you paint it up and you put blood, and from a certain angle, it looks like the whole throat's just been ripped out, and it's just if you know how to do things, simple tricks like that will just really just be great. And I remember him seeing that and him just going like, wow, that's really cool. And I was like, okay, all right, that's really cool. And I think, we just, we respected each other, I mean, yeah, I guess, because obviously he called me back. So obviously he liked me.
All right.
So he's not listening now, going, that motherfucker.
So when you say makeup artist, because you also talk about effects, what does that entail? Because is it just makeup, and you also saying effects? So what's like the crossover besides like makeup and like special effects, I guess?
Well, there's I actually consider myself to be a makeup artist. There's some people who call themselves just strictly effects artists, and some people consider themselves just like because there's straight makeup artists that just do the beauty and the correctives and all that kind of stuff, and then there are people who do the prosthetics, and they might be considered prosthetic. Whatever hat you want to wear. But the one thing that I knew, working, because I I'm semi-union makeup artist here in New York. Excuse me. And we did, and I knew that I just couldn't come in as a guy that did blood and gore and things like that, even though that's what got me into the business in the first place. I just knew that I would be, you get pigeonholed or you get labeled. I mean, I still get it from now, which is kind of funny that I still get people where they go, hey, what are you doing here? Who's getting their head chopped off? And I'm like, no one. I'm doing regular makeup on the show. And it's weird. And these are people that have known me for years. They're like, oh, no, what's going on here? And I was like, no, I'm just kind of doing beauty makeup. And it's okay. I can do that kind of shit too, And that's what the difference is like, I didn't just want to be an effects artist because I knew in order to have a career, you really, really want to be able to do a lot of different things. And I think it just looks better because otherwise you just, like I said, you just kind of pigeonhole. But the idea of doing, if I can, give a shout out to a show I just wrapped called The Deuce. If we just finished season 2, we had a whole bunch of little things that went on there. I was actually making teeth for this thing, this show. And we're laying hair. We're doing, late 70s style makeups.
Yeah, everybody's got that perfect 70s look in that show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's like, and being able to do all that kind of stuff. It's like, the idea is I want people to call me. I just want people to say, oh, listen, we got a guy that has to have a black eye. And most people can do a black eye or a bruise. I mean, it's not that difficult if you know how to do it well. And most time, they're not going to hire someone at a higher rate just to come in and do that kind of stuff. So the idea of having more irons in the fire just makes them more. It's like an actor. Like if you have a guy that does comedy, if you go back to like Bob Hope and all those guys, they just weren't comedy, actors. They were entertainers. Yeah. You saw them sing, you saw them dance, you saw them do drama, you saw them do comedy, and that's the idea because you just don't want to be a guy that does, it's like, actors that get pigeonholed. Everybody wants to put people in a little box and keep them in a little box. And it's like they got to fight their way. That's why so many actors kind of fight their way out of being this or that. And the idea about being the capability of doing, so many different types of makeup is that you have more people who are willing to hire you because they know you can do that.
Right. And just being diverse.
Exactly. And for all your listeners out there, if they want to, definitely go and, and diversify yourself as your skills and your wants and your desires and all that kind of stuff, because you're going to be hireable more than just someone who can, put a prosthetic on somebody, especially in the overall run of a career.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I would guess like when CG started, if you were just like a special effects guy, that would have hurt your career too.
Well, I look at it as when CGI kind of came around, there was that sort of rumbling through the industry. They're like, oh no, we're going to lose jobs. But truth be told, I'm not that I'm patting myself on the back, but I'm working all the time. And a lot of people I know are working all the time. I mean, I can see it having certain looks, and there's a sort of a pushback a little bit now about CGI.
It seems
works good in some. Go ahead, please.
I was just saying, it's just lately it seems practical effects are starting to be like the cool thing again. It's kind of like a selling point. Like this movie has practical effects.
Well, I always looked at it this way. When you created a digital effect, it's a computer's interpretation of what you're telling it to do. Mm-hmm. It's a non-organic thing trying to say, oh, you're putting in a series of things, and I'll try to figure out what you're trying to say. You know, that's why they put the dots on faces and things like this, so we can get those little nuanced movements that the faces have that CGI can't really do, you know, if it's done a certain way. And sometimes it works really great. I mean, there are some effects that CGI effects, I'm like, well, that's really fucking awesome. That looks great. And there's some you kind of go, no, why couldn't they have just done it like that? And there was those, rumblings of people saying, well, now the monsters are going to be all CGI. And I can see it working in a lot of ways because I did, that movie War of the Worlds, right, years ago. And there was one part I remember where they're running through this tunnel. It's actually towards the end of the movie where Tom Cruise says, hey, look at the birds. They're on the alien's head there, the tripod's head. And we were in the tunnel, all the actors and the makeup people and hair people. And there's a part where they're in obviously because this is the dolly. So the dolly's running through the tunnel, and Spielberg kind of looks on the wall. He goes and sees a shadow, and Dennis Muren was there. Mm-hmm. And he turns to Dennis Muren and he goes, "You can CGI out that shadow." He goes, "Yeah, I can do that." So they didn't have to try to tweak something or relight something. They could tweak it, that they could get rid of it as an after effect. Like I did a couple of movies where we had these, heads getting shot off. Mm-hmm. And just to give you an example, I did a movie called Shame a few years ago, and we did this practical effect of this woman has slit her wrist, and the director wanted tons of blood, practical blood. And they digitally took out the tubes and all that kind of stuff, but the practical blood was still there. Now, the bathroom floor wasn't level. Mm-hmm. So all the blood pulled to one side of the bathroom, which was behind the vanity and the toilet and all this stuff. So we cleaned it. So we spent like hours cleaning that entire bathroom of any remnants of blood to do 2 or 3 more takes. So there you can see the idea of where having that blood come out or taking a practical effect of let's say a practical effect of blood coming out, real blood, real liquid blood, and CGIing that over the person's wound and then creating a puddle of blood that will just grow and, taking real practical elements and just connecting them together within the computer. But it's real practical elements. They just put it all together. And then it just pulls up in where it has to go, and then it control where it goes. And you're not sitting there for like an hour waiting to clean up because guess who had to fucking clean the shit up? You know what I mean? The guys that
that's got to be kind of a godsend at that point.
Oh yeah, there are absolutely times where you say, "Oh, I'm doing CGI," and I kind of go, "Thank God, I'm so happy." Because I make the joke that working in this business and working in this industry. We don't do a 9 to 5. We do a 5 to 9. And when you hit that 12th or 14th hour and they say, we're going to do it digitally, you kind of go, fuck, that means I can go home, right? Thank you. Uh-huh. But the passion, and I love it. So don't get me wrong. I love what I do. I really, truly love what I do.
Yeah. When you mentioned doing the Deuce, and I know a lot of that would be the wardrobe, too, to get the 70s feel. But what do you do what do you do for like reference? Do you watch 70s movies or like pictures?
Most of them are true images because the people in the Deuce are actually real people. They're real people that existed at the time, and their lives in the show are based upon the lives of the actual people. So if you look at the people in the show, they're more or less made to look like the actual people. So historically speaking, we're trying to be accurate to the real people. And there's looking at movies in the 70s, and of course, then you see how much gas was back in the 70s, and you go, what the hell? And then you see the reference. Yeah, sorry guys, I don't mean to over talk you guys. And that's it. It's all about reference. It's all about because, when you see the truth behind it, because if you're representing the 70s, especially people who grew up around it and knew it or saw it, they kind of go, no, that didn't happen. What's that? That's bullshit. You know, they didn't have that back then. You know, people will spot it, you know, and you want to be truthful to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not like doing something from like the 1700s. Like, all right, how do you know what it looked like then? If it's the 1970s, like, hey man, I was a kid then. I remember it.
Yeah. Exactly. It's like, I remember that shit. I remember what hair used to look like, and beards used to look like. And the biggest thing that we had was I was doing a Boardwalk Empire, and the biggest thing that we had to do was fill in men's earring holes.
That's something I would not think about.
Something like that.
Yeah. Because we did movies, I did. So that show took place in the 20s and the 30s, and then you have movies that go all the way, and guys didn't have earring holes. They didn't have earrings. So you're sitting there going like, oh, and then you get some of these guys that come in and they got they put like bolts in their kind of bolts with nuts in their ears, and you're like, really? Really? And you're sitting there and gluing it. It looks really fucking weird too when you got a guy that's got like basically a quarter-size hole in his ear, and you're gluing that shit a little close. It kind of looks like a weird vagina. You gotta kind of putty that shit, so it looks at least as seamless as possible. And of course, one thing I should mention too is tattoos. We also have to cover tattoos too. Yeah. That's another thing because of what happened with, I think it was The Hangover 2. There's this whole thing about that now tattoos, unless they're cleared and written cleared, because everything has to be in paper, that a lot of things have to be covered over. So you get these people that have, I remember I did, a show was called The Get Down, and there was a guy that had 2 tattoos like all over his face and on his neck. And I had to cover all those things because guys didn't have that back then.
Right.
So you got it. So we talk about doing research, looking at books, looking at movies. Yeah, you have to, because a lot of stuff will just go past and be like, wait a minute, you can't have that shit. We got to cover that. Beards, certain beard shapes have to be changed. It's all stuff you got to be conscious aware of, because if you're creating a time period, you have to stay true to that time period. You just can't kind of let shit go.
About the when you're talking about the tattoo there, that was because someone said that they own like the artwork on like Mike Tyson's face tattoo.
Well, I think what the story behind that, and of course this is all hearsay, I wasn't there to really know about it.
Sure.
What happened was, Ed Helms got, in the movie, he got the Tyson tattoo, right? And it was a big joke in the movie, but the guy who designed it and put it on there said, that's my intellectual property. It's, there's a thing called intellectual property. It's like art and things like this. And he said, you can clear that with me. And apparently, I think he won the case. And they didn't get permission. And because of that, now all tattoos, regardless, have to be cleared through production. And it's like, even if we go on the internet to look at certain designs for certain tattoos, we have to get permission from that artist to say, can we use that image? Like I did, and once more, I'm not patting myself on the back for this, but I did Person of Interest, and one episode we did a bunch of stuff with Russian mobs. And we had to look at all of these. And if you ever know anything about Russian tattoos, as cute as a cat is, it's not a cat. It's something completely different. And so we had to clear all the tattoos and honestly make sure we're not pissing anybody off, too. So we had to do the tattoos based upon what these, higher ups would have on their hands and their back. It's like Eastern Promises. Vito Morgensen had his tattoos that were all researched. So when Ed Helms had the tattoo, not him, he was an actor. He was just, whatever. It's not his thing. So because of that, and because of the intellectual property thing, we now have to clear all the tattoos. And if they're cleared, they're fine. But also, once more, does it fit the character? And also, does it fit the time? So regardless, you still might have to cover them up, even if they are clear. Sometimes I've actually, covered tattoos, only to reapply tattoos over them.
Right.
That's going to be kind of weird.
Yeah, it's weird because it's like, well, they were a gang, and the gang wouldn't have like a butterfly in the back of his neck. So we got to cover up the butterfly and put like, a gun pointing at somebody or a skull or something. Yeah.
So I know you also worked on The Walking Dead. So what are some of the rules, I guess, for makeup of a zombie on The Walking Dead? Is it different than a zombie?
I didn't work with Nicotero's team. I actually worked with the other makeup artists.
Okay.
So I was doing like Andrew Lincoln and Norman and all that. So I didn't do the zombies, because of so I was just putting dirt and blood on those guys. And I have to say, just to give them all a shout out, they're fucking awesome people. They really, truly are awesome people, and they work their fucking asses off. I mean. And if you've ever been in Atlanta, in Georgia, in the summer, you know how fucking hot that place gets. And it rained like almost every day, and it's not like a light rain. It's like God saying, we're getting closer to that kind of end of the world kind of thing going on. So it would be. I remember. I'll tell you a story. My first day ever working on The Walking Dead, the trailers were like in an empty. We're in a lot. Not an asphalt lot, like a grassy lot. And it's fucking pouring rain. And the department head comes up to me, and she goes, "Do you have your car keys with you?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Good, because they got to move the trailers or else they're going to sink in the mud and we'll never get them out."
Oh, jeez.
And I remember I got chigger bites all over my waistband. I had ticks on me. It was, and the thing is, because they shot a lot of time during the daytime, they have something called daylight dependent, which means if people who are not familiar with what that means, it's like when the sun comes up to the sun goes down, that's all you have to shoot.
Mm-hmm.
So when they shot in the woods, they were daylight dependent. So there were a lot of times that we would come in like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, eat breakfast in the van to get to the location and start shooting till X amount of time. And those actors, oh my God, incredible, physically incredibly too, So I did a lot of the blood and dirt and all this stuff. So I didn't really work with zombies. So if you had a lot of zombie questions, I'm sorry.
No, I didn't.
I can't really answer
No,
those.
that's fine.
You know?
Yeah. That's
the
interesting.
One thing I got to say, though, yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the one thing I got to say, though, that I like about it is that if you notice from the beginning of the series to about now, all the zombies are getting really rotten.
Yes, I like that.
They're progressively getting worse. So there's that continuity that's happening within the show itself of the zombies becoming more and more. The only thing that never got to me, I asked a question about this: why is their teeth so damn good? I mean, I'm like, their organs are hanging out and their limbs are coming off and their eyes are coming out. But why is their teeth so fucking good that they can still bite shit?
It's a good question. I guess they're not eating a lot of sugar, so they might.
Well, they eat a diabetic, I guess. I don't know.
That's very interesting. I always wonder what zombies do with the people they eat. Like, do they just defecate? Because I don't think they would go to the bathroom. Does it break down? Do they still have stomach acid?
I don't know.
It'd be interesting if you made a movie where the zombies just get real fat and eventually just can't chase anybody anymore.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. There's an image of a movie in my head about some fat guy trying to get up, and he's just sort of wiggling his arms. He's trying to get up, and I just can't think of where it's from. I see it in my head, and I just can't remember. But yeah, I mean, it's true. It's like, where does all that meat go? Do they get constipated? Do they have colonoscopy? All that kind of stuff. Do they poop out what comes in? If they eat a head, does the head come out the same end? It's weird shit. This is stuff you do when you're on drugs. I think it's like, what makes you zombie?
I remember that King story where the guys, I think it was in The Night Flyer, and the guy sees, because he's in the bathroom and he's watching through a reflection, so the vampire doesn't show up, but the vampire's like using the urinal and he's peeing blood. And so he just sees a stream of blood going into the urinal. And I just always thought that was the greatest idea. One of those things you never really think too much about.
Yeah. I like
Is what a zombie always have bloody stools then?
Yeah, exactly. I wonder. We'll get King on the horn on that.
I tell you, does a vampire go, man, I got to check my shit out because I'm still shitting blood.
Yeah, right. I got some issues.
So, I know Greg's always has been wanting to make Johnny Gruesome for a long time. Were you aware of that it was like a project of his that he's been wanting to make for a long time?
Yeah, we talked about it probably in the beginning of the 90s or late 80s, really 90s. He was talking about it, but he never had, like, it was like his project. It was his dream project, and he really wanted not to make it on the cheap. And he was willing to wait. You know, it's like waiting for that girl to come home. You're willing to go through all the whatever until you get what you want. And he was willing to wait until that budget came in, that he could make it the right way. And like I said, there was a lot of times I wasn't able to go and work on a lot of his movies, but I made pieces or prosthetics, and I sent them to his guys that he uses up, John Rennan and those guys who live up in the Buffalo area. That do the effects for him. And so, I'm sure there's more, and forgive me if I don't remember all their names. And they did a lot of it. But when Greg actually talked to me about doing Johnny Gruesome, I'm actually physically kind of doing it, because he did it as a music video. He wrote it as a book. He did it as a long, I forget what it's called, but I don't want to say long-winded because that's fucked up. But long, extended, whatever. It was a music video, but it was also a movie as well. And I remember him talking about it, and when he approached me about doing it, there was that sense of like, okay, this is what he really wants to do. And he really made me feel like he really wanted me to be a part of it, because I've been part of the history of it for that long also. And so I was actually on the Deuce the first season, and I left that show to go up to Buffalo. I shuffled off to Buffalo for the weeks that we were up there. And actually, I got to tell you some really great stories about the waits that a hotel staff in my hotel room. And there was no dead hookers or anything like that, per se, in my room. But so when the big thing that was about the movie, I met Anthony, and Anthony came over to my shop here in Long Island. I took a cast of his face. I took casts of the hands and all that kind of stuff. And we made all the pieces. And of course, as you know, in Johnny Gruesome, he rots through the film. Mm-hmm. And so it was very important that he does get a little, he rots through the film, so you can get the idea that he is an animated corpse. He's not a zombie per se, he is to a certain degree, but he can talk, he can reason, but he's still an organic thing, and there's nothing, so he's just rotting away. So when he approached me about it, I was like, yeah, I'm definitely going to be a part of this, because I really, really want to be I really wanted to be a part of it. It was like something, I'm like, yeah, it's been a while, and I really want to do something that is more fun than just, not saying I don't have fun, but it's like I really want to do something with Greg. I really want to do this. Like I said, I've been with him for so long, and I said, yes, absolutely, I'm going to come and do this, do this movie with you.
Yeah. So how long did it take to make Johnny Gruesome?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Let me tell you those two quick stories, and I'll get right back to that. So anyway, because I'll forget, because I will forget. I have serious shit going on. Anyway, I'm just joking. Anyway, so when I'm abroad, I'm in a hotel room. I don't have them clean the room every single day, because I'm not a dirty person. I'm not a messy person. But I brought in like 4 trunk loads of makeup and prosthetics. So I had severed heads. Johnny Gruesome had 7 different looks for him. Four of them were prosthetics. The other ones were just regular makeup. And there were severed hands. There was a dummy body and all this stuff. So finally, after day 5 or 6 into it, maybe even longer, but I finally let them come in and clean the room. So I go to the elevator, and the housekeeping woman looks dead at me. And I look at her eyes, and I go, look at her, and she looks at me. She goes, "Are you staying in room 203? I was like, "Yes." And she goes, "Is that stuff real?" And I was like, no, it's all fake. It's all part of a movie and stuff like this. But I heard that she never wanted to clean my room. Someone else had to go clean my room.
Just a one-time deal.
Just like imagine that shit. You walk in the room, and you usually got like families coming in with their kids, and and you walk in, and there's a severed head on the table. There's arms, and there's fucking legs, and there's 4 different zombie faces on things, all just strewn about the room. I had to climb over things to get into the bed, so. I don't blame her, but I thought it was so funny as shit. Okay. And sorry, go back to your question again. It was, how long did it take?
Yeah, I was just going to say, though, you should have just looked at her and said yes.
Yes. I should have been like, yeah. Imagine I should have said, "Don't ever go back into my room. And if you tell anyone, don't tell anyone what you saw. You have kids, don't tell anyone. You have a dog, cat, bird, don't tell anyone." I think I was in a month and a half of pre-production, because what I would do is I would sculpt, because I had the live cast of Anthony Del Toro, and I would sculpt the various rotting, features because it was a silicone mask. He wore it. It was completely covered his face and covered. And it was a wraparound piece that covered maybe about 3/4 of the back of his neck. So when you looked at it, it was a seamless prosthetic. And then his outfit and his hair would hide edges on the side and things like this. Little tricks that you can come up with. So I was about a month. I think it was about a month and a half of pre-prep. And what I would do is I would sculpt the face, and then I would send a picture to Greg to get his approval. Now, remember, Johnny Gruesome's been around for a long time. Not a long time, but it's been around. So there's the image of him on the book where he's a skull face. And because the thing is, when you look at someone wearing a skull mask, and you go back even to The Walking Dead, you can still kind of see the person's nose, unless it's digitally taken out, or the mask itself comes so far further out that it hides it. And from the front, it looks awesome, but from the side, it ends up looking more like a snout. And I knew that I couldn't do that, because I didn't want to look like a snout if he turns his head. From the front, it'll like I said, but it limits the way you shoot certain things. So I did it so that the nose and the lip area would turn more putrid. That's why it looks more blackish and reddish in some of the images that are going on Facebook and so forth and so on. Because I wanted to make it look like that was really rotting. It's not fallen off yet, but it's past the point of saving. And then his skin tells, for me, when I did, where people were images like rotting flesh, to me, it almost looks like when you take a piece of meat and you just let it sit for a while, like chopped meat, it turns that grayish color, because all the red is out of it. And that's how I kind of approached Johnny Gruesome. So, in that movie, he wears 7 different makeups. He's got his regular makeup look. He's got his funeral look, which I consider to be different. And then there's the different stages of his rot. And then it's a final one where there's a big confrontation at the end.
So, what did you think of the finished movie?
I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, okay.
It comes out next month.
That's very true.
Video on demand. I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he gave us he let people get like a code to watch it, and I thought the code was like you can watch it anytime you want kind of code.
Right.
So when I finally had a chance to watch it, I'm like, oh, so what happened with the code? He goes, it's limited. You can only watch it for a short amount of time, and then it goes away. And I said, oh well. I guess I'll wait for it to come out. So I haven't seen it yet. But I mean, it's getting really great reviews, which is awesome. Yeah. It's getting nice reviews, which is, I think, is great.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I dug it. I saw it. Yeah. And
you fucking saw it, man?
I did see it.
Oh, shit.
He was good? On time for his good.
Yeah, I dug it a lot. And I really did like the fact that he does get worse as the movie goes along. It kind of made me think a movie you brought up earlier was American Werewolf in London, where his friend keeps coming back and he's worse and worse every time you see him, which I don't think people mention enough. I think that's one of the best parts of that.
Yeah, it's a continuity. It's like going back to The Walking Dead. All the zombies are rotting and getting worse, and all the people are getting tired, and it's progressively in that universe. And I think it's smart. I mean, it just works really well because it's like, this is the progression of the story. You can go back to episode 1 of season 1 and be like, everyone looks kind of bright and chipper as whatever it was, and the zombies look all fresh. Now they look like, man, they're barely able to stand on whatever they got,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But the one thing that was cool is they used to do tribute zombies. That was cool. And they used to do tribute zombies.
What do you mean by that?
Well, The Walking Dead, they used to do tribute zombies.
Mm-hmm.
You're aware of that, right? That they did tribute zombies?
No, I'm not sure what that is.
Okay, what they do is, like, let's say, you guys ever see a movie called, I think it's Tales from the Crypt? Is it Arthur Grimsdyke? Peter Cushing is that.
Oh, right.
Grimsdyke, Arthur Grimsdyke character.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there's a Grimsdyke zombie in The Walking Dead. There's a bub in The Walking Dead. There's, in Dawn of the Dead, the original Dawn of the Dead, there's a plaid shirt zombie.
Uh-huh.
He's also in The Walking Dead. They did a whole bunch of tribute zombies.
Jeez.
I never knew that.
I've watched every episode and I was not aware of this. I'm a terrible host.
No, yeah. If you probably look it up now, because I don't think they do it anymore. But there was
ran
a couple
out of
seasons. Yeah. I always wanted them to do one from Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. I kept suggesting that. But if you look it up now, you'll see they probably have the whole thing of all the tribute zombies.
Yeah.
Huh. I'll be damned. Never knew that.
Oh, there's a lot of Dawn of the Dead, Hare Krishna, and
right. Yeah, they did all the famous zombies that people kind of remember. They brought them back. It's like if you ever look at Men in Black 3, a lot of the aliens were based upon aliens from old 50s sci-fi movies.
Mm-hmm.
They're all tributes to whatever came before it. So yeah.
So how much when you're doing Slime City Massacre, how much slime is involved?
Well, like I said, I wasn't on set for that.
No, that's right. I'm sorry.
Right, that's all right. The only thing I did do, which was kind of cool, is I did the mask for Debbie Rochon, and I did her, and I did the slime gina, he called it. It's like if you've seen the movie, there's where her chest opens up and it's like all this teethy thing, and it bites the head off one of the characters. That was Tommy Sweeney, who was prior in a lot of Greg's films before that. And I actually used a live cast of Tommy Sweeney. I just made like a quick slip cast latex head and weighted it down because they were going to drop it on the floor, and we put hair in it and painted it up, sent it out. But one of my favorite gags I did was Eric Mache has been with Greg also a lot, and there's the part of, have you seen Slime City Massacre, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Do you know the guy that gets the wine bottles in the eyes?
Right. Yeah.
Right, and the blood pours out of the wine bottles?
Yes.
Yeah, we came up with that. I said, well, it's kind of cool that he jabs the bottles in his eyes and he tilts his head down and the blood comes pouring out of the wine bottles. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Minds work that way. Yeah.
So what was it like working with Wes Craven on My Soul to Take?
Oh, Wes was awesome. He was such a nice guy, really nice guy. And I'm not just saying that, because we did that for about, I think, 3 or 4 weeks. And then a year later, we went and did 2 weeks of reshoots, which totally changed the story slightly. And then 3 days later, we did 2 more days of reshoots. But what you see in the movies, in the movie itself, was more of what was originally shot. They changed it slightly, which I thought was more interesting, because if I could say it, what would happen is that creature would come, kill the other kid, and then you would go back and it'd be one of the other kids, and the kid be like, well, what happened? Well, why am I here? Why am I on this bridge? What am I doing? So it wasn't this creature. The creature does come in the movie later, but it was a little bit more out there, but I thought it was more interesting as a story. But Wes was awesome. All the actors were awesome. We were shooting up in Connecticut for like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you know. Yeah. It was great. I mean, I got to say, overall, to be really frank, is everyone. I haven't really had any issues with any actors or any directors. Once in a while, they kind of go, because they're trying to make their movie. But generally speaking, it's all been really, really good.
That's good.
Yeah. No one complains about sitting in the makeup chair or anything.
Well, the one thing they might say is the time. How long it takes. Because, especially, it can take hours. I mean, it can take a long time. It could take 4 hours. Mm-hmm. And especially when you have a call, let's say your crew call is 8 o'clock in the morning, and that person has to be in makeup. So you're having a pre-call at like 3. I mean, I'll tell you a story. I remember I had my first day on this, it was a pilot. It never went to series called Babylon Fields. It was all about zombies. Mm-hmm. Our call time was like 12:12 because we had to make over 200 background people look like they just came up out of the grave.
Wow.
So we're talking all these people had to be covered in dirt and dried crusty blood, and they had to have prosthetics put on, and they had to have this put on. Like probably 220 people, and they also had to go to the hair, and they had to go to wardrobe. So we got it was like 12:12 at night, so they can be ready by 7:30 in the morning. And then we shoot daylight dependent till 3, 4, 5, 7 o'clock at night, and then there's the cleanup. Then there's that other part of taking all that shit off people.
Yeah, I like that it was 12:12 and not 12 or 12:15.
Well, the way it works is it's actually based upon a 6-minute clock. If you look at a clock from 12 to 12, there's 10 6-minute or whatever. There's 6 minutes. So it's 12:06, 12:12, 12:18, 12:24, 12:30, 12:36, 12:42. And so forth and so on. And that's how the clock works for us. Everything's done on the sixes because then it adds up equally. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's not 12:15, or it doesn't mean it doesn't happen that way. Sure. But it's usually easier to add up when it's on the sixes because then it just adds up in terms of an hour.
Yeah. All right. That makes sense. Would you say that was your the most time consuming thing you've worked on?
In terms of people, yeah. But there was an army of us. I think there was like 15 makeup artists doing it. So we had an army of people doing this. I think the one that was kind of time-consuming but fun also was my very, very first day on Boardwalk Empire. We had a 2 a.m. call because all these people had to be in facial hair. And all the facial hair wasn't prepped. We had a few mustaches, but a lot of the hair had to be hand-laid. And what that means is you're literally putting glue on people's skin, and you're taking hair and you're taking little pieces of it and you're sticking into the adhesive little by little by little. So it looks like a natural growth pattern. And then you're shaping it and setting it and things like this. So we had people that had mustaches and mutton chops, and sideburns, and they all had to be hand laid. A lot of them had to be hand laid. So you're getting up, you're already bleary-eyed from getting up as early as you are now. You have to do this intricate work to make it look like a natural haircut. That's what I talked about before when we first started is why you have to be really diverse in capability as a makeup artist, because if you're good at that shit, people say, fuck, call that guy because he knows how to lay hair and he does it quick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
An amazing show.
It's not like Saturday Night Live when you got 3 minutes, 4 minutes to put on a prosthetic. That's totally different.
Yeah. Well, I guess with that too, it doesn't have to. It probably adds to it if it doesn't look totally natural. That's the comedy.
Well, we were talking about for Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
Well, it's the thing is when the prominent is Louis Zachary and his key is Jason Milani, and when they approach the makeups, the one rule that they have to follow is they're asked not to bury the actor in makeup.
Mm-hmm.
So you still want to see the cast member or the guest star in the makeup because that's the rule. So what they'll do is they'll look at an image of who they're trying to represent, and they'll see okay, maybe one guy's ears pop out a little bit more, or maybe his jawline is a little squared, or his nose is certain. So they'll add those little touches to that actor to make them look a little bit more like them. I mean, some of them are completely covered in makeup because, there are certain characters that these cast members have created that are totally submerged in the makeup. And they still got to put it on in like 3-4 minutes.
Yeah. So how long have you been with Saturday Night Live? Do you still do that?
Yeah, I'll start my 13th season at the end of this month, September 29th.
So you're always busy. You got too many things going on.
Yeah, I'm pretty busy, my friend. Wow. Yeah, I've been blessed, but this time I will pat myself on the back. It's because I do a lot of different things. I do a lot of things. So if someone can say, I need someone who can just do a simple beauty makeup or can do a beauty makeup on an actor. Oh, let's go, Craig. Okay, he can do that. Because New York is, truth be told, New York is booming. We have a tax incentive in place and the production has just exploded in New York for the last 5 or 10 years. I mean, we've had an issue. I remember when I was trying to find someone for a job, I think I went through close to 22 names until I finally found someone who was available. That's how busy we are here in New York. And I mean, there are stages opening up. I mean, they're turning abandoned warehouses into stages everywhere. And it's got a high ceiling. It's going to be a stage. Who cares if it's next to a slaughterhouse? It's fine. It's okay. People get
throw it in there.
And that's what you say. Can the lamps really be silent because they're making too much noise? But I mean, it's so having the diversification just makes it better and easier for people to find work.
So how hectic is that when you have like a few minutes before you go live, and it's a live show? So
it's a live show. I mean, it's funny when people say like, "When did they tape it?" They're like, "It's the reason why it's called live." When did they tape it? It's the reason why it's called Saturday Night Live.
Thursday afternoon.
Thursday afternoon. Well, I mean, the pre-tapes are done Thursdays and Fridays, sometimes Saturdays, and those guys are cranking shit out. I mean, if you go to like their Instagram pages and stuff like this, you see them cranking like a full-on dragon head in like 2.5 days, full-on dragon heads. You know what I mean? It's fucking amazing, but it can be pretty hectic. Like I remember, what happens is each cast member has a hair, makeup, and wardrobe person attached to them. So one season I was working on Taron Killam was my cast member at the time. Like I actually had Bill Hader was my first, and then I had Will Forte, and then I had Taron Killam, and now I have Alex Moffat. Everyone kind of gets them, and I remember Taron had to be the Tin Woodsman in the prior sketch. So he's got the Tin Woodsman nose, the chin, the cowl, silver makeup all over his face. And when you take them in, or out of the makeup, you're just not there doing their makeup. You have wardrobe people taking them in and out of clothes. You have wig people taking them in and out of wigs at the same time. Wow. So you're all busy and doing it at the same time and all that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, sometimes you got to push people out of the way because sometimes they don't know what to do. They're like, you're running in. They're like, get the fuck out of the way. And the hosts are dragged everywhere. They're dragged everywhere. They like grab them by the hands. It's just, they're like, because someone literally leads them to other places. And I remember the thing with Taron is I got him out of the makeup, got him in his new wardrobe, and he walks onto the floor, and I catch the silver makeup. He still had silver makeup in his ear canal, right inside there. So I get him on the floor and I stop him. and I hear them starting to count down when they're coming back because we had a commercial break. And I'm just cleaning him up right there on the floor to get the silver. And I hear 3, 2, and I clean him up, and he goes running up on stage before it counted 1, and it came up from commercial break. So you learn how to do shit super quick, and you sit there and you cross your fingers that the glue that beard put on is going to hold, because, we've all had beards pop off in the middle of a sketch, and I'm like, oh, fucking me, middle. And this is, of course, it's not during the pre-tape. It's got to be during the live show. Okay, thank you very much. But it happens. It happens. I mean, you only got a few minutes. I remember we did 4 ball caps in 20 minutes. And ball caps can take, 45 minutes to an hour to put on. So imagine 20 minutes between 4 ball caps going on. It literally was like an assembly line,
Yeah. I personally tried to put a bald cap on once for Halloween, and I was not successful. For some reason, it just kept...
You tried to do it on yourself?
Yeah, it just kept flying off my head.
I did that once many years ago for some student film. I put a ball cap on my head, and it was so bad that I'm like, oh, I look like I look like my wrinkly ass on my head. So I'm like, oh, I'll just put the wrinkles in and make it look like veins and shit like that. And I'll put horns on it and put hair. So I'm like, that's good. But yeah, we've all been that. We've all done. I mean, we've all been where we started out and going like, ooh, shit, did I really do that kind of shit? Like, okay, thank God I'm a little bit better now than I was back then.
Dude, if something does like a mustache, whatever comes off, do you get chastised for it, or is it just just something
to a
happens?
certain degree? Yes, but I'll tell you a great story. Like I said, Louis Zakarian is the department head there, and then we had another makeup artist named Joshua Torrey, and Joshua Torrey now does a lot of the makeup effects for all those Netflix Marvel shows, right? Mm-hmm. And he tells this great story about when he first got on the show. And he put a beard, and I believe it was on Horatio Sands, and I believe I'm telling the story right. And unfortunately, the beard was coming off, and it was Horatio Sands, and it was Jimmy Fallon, and they ended up making a joke about it. They were goofing around with the beard popping off, but of course, there's Josh, first time on the show, and he's sweating bullets because he's like, oh, fuck, I'm fired, my beard's popping off and kind of stuff, and so Louis comes up to him and puts his hands on his shoulder and says, "Oh, trouble with that beard, huh? Welcome to live TV." And walks away. Because it happens. It fucking happens. I mean, I've had beards pop off. I remember one particular happened with me with Will Forte. Is he was doing a bit on Weekend Update. And what happens sometimes, in order to make things to go smoothly, a lot of the actors are already in a ball cap before they even start the show. And they might have what's known as a self-wig. So it looks like their regular hair, but it's a wig. So during this particular part, and he starts to sweat. And we use this product called Prozaid, which is white, goes clear. And there, in front of all these people, in front of me, in front of the monitor, this white, bright white bead of sweat runs right down the center of his head. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, oh, fuck me. And there's nothing I can do. I can't run in. I can't stop it. I can't say nothing. I just have to watch it happen. And I go back into the makeup room like, oh my God. And Josh was still there, and he goes, did you see that Bishop blood? Remember Bishop from Aliens where the blood was all white?
Yeah.
He goes, did you see that Bishop blood run down Will's face? You just got to say, well, next time I'll put a lot more glue on. That's all you can say. But it's a really great atmosphere. The one thing I have to say about working for SNL, working for all those guys, it's an amazing, amazing atmosphere. Everyone is so supportive. We all have a fucking good time with all the craziness that's involved in it. We all have each other's backs, and we're all there to have a good fucking time. And that's what makes the show the way it is. The cast members are there to have a great time, and everyone has a blast. And that's what makes the show so good. And that's what makes working there so good. Like I said, I wouldn't be there for all these seasons if I wasn't having a good time. The money's not great, You know, my wife goes like, "Hey, you're making a lot of money there." I said, "I know, but I'm not doing it for the money. I'm doing it because it's my oasis in my desert. This is the place I want to be. You know, it's just so much fucking fun to be there. You know, I mean, Louis been there for over 23 seasons at this point in time. So it just shows you how much he loves it.
Yeah, that's wild. So, do you have a favorite guest host?
I would think Justin Timberlake. I think he, you know, when I talked about some of the actors, you know, Bob Hope and all those guys being entertainers, Justin Timberlake's an entertainer. He just doesn't sing, but he acts and he dances. And I think he's one of the best hosts because he just has a damn good time when he's there. And it shows in his performance. You know, I think hands down, he's probably up there with a lot of the hosts that have been there and just made, you know, because sometimes, you know, the sketches can be kind of, but if you have a guy that knows what they're doing and can pull comedy out of sketches and just make you laugh, you know, that's why those guys are so good, all the cast members, because they can elevate the material to higher points because they're so good. Not saying the material is bad, and I don't want to walk in on next, you know, the 29th and have all these writers looking at me. But I mean, the sketches are funny, but imagine a guy taking that humor and making it even more. And that's what they're, you know, that's why they're there. And yeah, you know.
So if you were gonna make like maybe you have this, I don't know, like some actors have like a sizzle reel of all their stuff. What would you put for like your top 5 or whatever, like makeups that you were the most proud of?
Well, I did a ball cap for a movie called Louder Than Bombs. Jesse Eisenberg was in that. It was a small budget film, but I loved that ball cap. I mean, I thought it was like one of the, and this woman had hair that really came down pretty far. And it was just amazing with the hair people helped me put her hair up, and it just looks so flippin' smooth. I just love that look because it's real. Like you know, monsters are monsters, but when you make someone look like they're like a person and you really change their features and still make them look like a person, I think that's the balls on real stuff. Let me think. That was, I think, I like the Johnny Gruesome's looks. You know, all the looks, the progressive looks that are in there. I do a show called Power. I start on Monday this show called Power, and I've been there, and I was doing 50s makeup on it, and we did this like really nasty burn makeup on him, and that's one thing I'm particularly proud because that was like I think 13 different small prosthetics that went up from his face down to his arm, all the way down to his fingertips, and that was pretty cool. That was a cool makeup. I'm trying to think because I think you're all been kind of cool. You know, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to look at like in my head, like my real kind of thing. R-E-L. I'm trying to think of what else. I think some of the hair work I've done, like some of the, even though it may not be a monster or a creature, but some of the hair work that people didn't even. Oh, you know which one I thought was pretty cool. I did an episode of Law and Order SVU, and there was this one girl that had something called. Oh, what's it called? It was a syndrome, and I forgot what it's called, but it makes their ears look a little pixie-ish, and it makes them hypersensitive to sound. Like they can whisper. Someone can whisper like 20 feet away, and they can hear them clearly. And I made these I made some teeth for this girl, young lady, and I gave her eye bags. And everyone talked about her teeth and her ears. No one mentioned the eye bags. That they didn't know they were a prosthetic. That I think was pretty cool. So that I like because no one knew it, and I think that's cool when people go like, really, they were in makeup. I'm trying to think what other ones that I kind of think are kind of cool. Well, I did a lot of shit for the show called Royal Pains. You know, Royal Pains was on the USA Network, and it was a medical show. So I was doing all kinds of stuff. Like we did one episode where I had to make teeth for the Big Show.
No, really?
Because you guys do wrestling too, right?
Yeah.
I had to do, and I did this. I had to fly up to Buffalo from New York. Literally go up there. They were doing a wrestling show up in Buffalo. I met him. I casted his teeth. I met Greg up there because so I could kind of come back later in the day. So I hung out with him for a little and then flew back, and I made these set up teeth for him because in the movie, well, in the show, it was a show within a show, and he plays this character called the Garbage Man, and his teeth are all fucked up. He's got like razor blades in his teeth, and he's got like a handsaw kind of blades, and he's got like pieces from like a fork in his teeth, and that was his teeth. So that was kind of fun to do that. And he's also big. I mean, you met him, right? He's a ginormous
I've not met him,
guy.
but yeah, he's very big.
You've never met him, man. This guy is. I mean, I'm small. I might as well be like a toddler next to him. You know, he's a big motherfucker. You know, he shook my hands, and I'm like, my hand is gone. Where's my hand? Oh, it's there. But very nice guy too. You know, very humble for a guy that big. He's very humble, and he was really nice. So I've had a lot of, you know, and that was a weekly show, which was always coming up with some kind of disease or rash. Every single episode was kind of interesting, and I did that for like six years. So that was fun. You know, always coming up with like, okay, someone has, and actually my favorite one was the bot fly extraction on that show. You know what a fly is? Yeah,
I've seen like on Facebook, people will share like real extractions, and I always wonder why like people want to watch that. But so yeah, I know what they are. Yeah.
I had to watch shit like that.
Right.
So I made a fake arm, and I got some larvae and buried it into the fake silicone arm. And, you know, we did the whole thing where the guy covered it with the Vaseline, and you saw little bubbles kind of come up, and you see him take the little forceps tweezers and go in there and pull this thing out of the guy's arm. That was pretty nice. Yeah, we had a lot of shit like that. We had like people getting like, I forgot what it was, but it's a video. It's like I got a video of this guy had to cut this guy's arm open because his arm there was pressure building up on his arm. And he literally had to slice his arm open so the skin wouldn't blow up. So almost like it would almost open like a chasm in his arm.
Yeah,
you know, and I had to watch videos like this. I did for the movie The Trainwreck. I had to replicate knee replacement surgery. So I had to buy all the parts and make the leg and all that kind of stuff. And that's, you know, you're sitting there like eating food, and you're watching someone getting their knees replaced. You go, oh, okay. So that's kind of like, oh, it's like, oh, all right. So that's, they got to saw that bone down. Oh, okay. You know, all right. So yeah, you know, you kind of get used to it.
Yeah,
it's part of the job.
When you're doing the larva, when you're working with something like that, you always see like on stuff they have like a wrangler for all these different animals, and you can't like hurt them, even if it is like a larva or some insect. What's that process like? Is there someone there who does, you know, is the larva wrangler?
Yeah, there'll be a guy that makes sure. Like when the extraction occurred, we used the fake one. So because it's just when you're not hurting the little thing. I said the damn thing. Hurting the thing, and then so when they want to look at it, you know, you cut it in such a way that it looks like you pulled out a real live larvae, and it's just wiggling on the table kind of thing. I remember years ago, I was a cricket wrangler because no one else wanted to do it by default. I was on a movie called Bugged, which is many, many years ago. And the whole premise of that is these crickets get into some nuclear waste and become these giant crickets. So they rented this person's house, and this guy went to the local pet store and bought like bags and bags and bags of crickets. So my job was to wrangle all the crickets, but of course, you know, it's not my forte. So sometimes in the night you'd be sleeping and you hear, I'm like, okay, I got to try to get that guy tomorrow because he got away, you know. But usually there's a person there to make sure nothing gets hurt or nothing gets unnecessarily put through some kind of stress. You know, the F the humans, but you know, we don't want a larvae to go through any duress.
Right.
You know. And now all the larvae people are like raising their fists at me, going like, "Fuck you!" Saying they have rights too. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, someone who does that, do they feel like the larva's like their pets? Are they really like passionate over larvae?
I know it's a good thing. I mean, I'm sure to some degree it's just the way they make a living, because I'm sure they just don't. Maybe they go into other insects. Maybe they go into earthworms. Hissing cockroaches, and I'm sure they go there. And I'm sure to them it's a little bit of both. It's a way that they make their living, and of course their job is to make sure that their living doesn't get killed.
Sure.
Like I always think of them in that scene in Starship Troopers where they're stomping on all those cockroaches.
Right.
I mean, they say, yeah, go ahead, you can smash the shit out of them, or were they already dead, or they say, he's kind of old, he's going to go anyway. You can kill him now. He's an old roach. It's okay. He's going to be in a wheelchair in a week. It's okay. You can step on him. So I always wonder about that. I guess it's a little bit of both. I'm sure they love what they do and they love what they have, but I'm sure it's also in their heads like, well, this is kind of how I make money.
Sure.
Yeah. Who wants to put their hands in like a bag full of earthworms, really?
Right.
I don't wake up thinking of that shit.
Right. So, do you still watch movies and TV since you work in the industry?
Yeah. I will. Sometimes I'll come to them seriously late after the pain of working on them has sort of subsided a little bit, and the memories have been drowned out by years of alcohol abuse. That I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I can watch that shit now. I'm past that point. And some shows like I watched. I mean, honestly, I watched The Deuce because I was really interested in watching that and see how that all worked out. And but I don't really have the pay channels, so I don't really watch any of the stuff on on Stars or Cinemax or any of those kind of things. I have to wait for the free weekend and then I binge watching all that I can watch and things like this. Or when I get a disc in the mail and it's a complete series, and then I'll watch and I'll binge watch the series. But usually, sometimes I'll watch something and I'll go like, oh man, did I really not see that when I did it? Oh, I must have been playing on my phone when that happened. I don't know what was going on. And then sometimes I go, yeah, that looked like shit. That looked really cool. I'm really happy about that.
Yeah. How about stuff that you don't work on? Do you still watch movies? And
oh yeah. I mean, I love the Marvel movies. I think they're really awesome. I really don't go see a lot of horror movies anymore in the theaters. And basically it's because I find a lot of them are just, I hate to say it, but, it's like they have to make some sort of sense to me. They have, if you're creating a situation, you have to sort of logistically follow that situation. I saw tons of horror movies in the 80s, and, I'll tell you a funny story. I saw Friday the 13th with my mom. My mom took me to see Friday the 13th. She loved that genre. And I'm watching this and I'm going like, this movie really sucks.
Yeah.
And I know I'm probably all the guys now that I love, and I don't know if you got a fondness for it, but I just watch it and I'm like, well, none of these characters are really interesting. And I just don't find anything. I mean, the Halloween to me, I loved Halloween. And in May, even though he got up and walked away, I got it. I got what was going on. Friday the 13th, I remember just wanted to turn to my mom and said, can I go? Because I don't really like this movie. I don't, none of these people are it's not grabbing me. And a lot of those movies that, I can understand you got to, make the plot go along. But if you're creating a story, it should follow some sort of logic. Like a guy that's 6'2" and weighs 320 pounds is not going to slip through a crack. That's right. It's not going to happen. Just to put him in the room, and you see a window open, and the window, is just slightly ajar. He's going to go like, what is he, made out of silly putty or something? And he just slipped through the crack, or he's got Mr. Fantastic. He's got no bones. He just slipped through that shit. That is what I don't like. It's like, but I still like. I just saw The Conjuring, not the Nun, but the Annabelle one. I just saw that on DVD, and I liked it. I really liked it. It got me a few times. And one I just saw on an airplane, and unfortunately I didn't see it because we landed. Was it the silent one with the aliens? What was it called? Quiet.
Oh,
I like.
yeah, I love that movie. I thought that was one of the best.
I really like it. There's one part now. Here, imagine this. Okay, everyone's talking in a whisper right now. I'm on an airplane and I'm listening to my headphones, and everyone's like, in the movie. And there's a part of the movie where something loud happens, and I went, "Whoa!"
Yeah,
and I went,
I said that.
Scared shit out of the plane.
In the review, like when I went to see it, I talked in the review it really gets you where you're really feeling tension when people are making noise in the movie.
Right. I mean, there's some parts like in the very beginning, I kind of went like, really, the one I'm talking about in the very beginning that kind of creates certain things. I kind of went, that kid kind of grew up in this environment. He know better than that. Mm-hmm. There's certain parts I understand where I just sometimes you got to let stuff, but maybe I'm something more of a critic now, especially for certain things like this. But when you put someone into a world, they should follow the rules of that world. Just don't arbitrarily change it because it makes something happen. Because if you sit down and you think about it, there are other ways to get to that point in the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could have been accidental.
And you can make it logical. Mm-hmm. But I still go to the movies. Like I got family, so we go see. Thank God my kids are older, so I can see more older, stronger fare. It's not like Smallfoot or something like that, or what I mean, kind of a kids more orientated movie or things like that. And I can see stuff that's got a little bit more stuff going on and things like this, and they're okay watching it. I mean, I still can't watch certain things on TV because there's too many explicitives, and already my kids are we're all from New York, so we say the F word like we're ordering pizza, we don't order a pizza, we order a fucking pizza. And it's got fucking anchovies on it. And I give me the fucking extra cheese.
No fucking ziti now?
What the fuck? What kind of fucking sauce is it? What, 2 fucking meatballs? What are you thinking I am? I'm on a fucking diet with just 3 meatballs. What the fuck is this shit? Come on. So yeah, I mean, I do, I mean, if I go to the movies, I kind of go to movies with family more now, and a lot of the stuff like I'll rent, or I'll go to like either Redbox or my local library will have movies, and I'll rent them, or I'll get them on pay-per-view or something like that. And I watch a lot of TV. Like I got caught up, and then I'm late to the game. I watched Breaking Bad like every fucking day. And now I got that shit was awesome. That show.
Oh, yeah. I think that's the best. I think that's the best story arc of any show from beginning to end.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I mean, to me, I mean, no episode sucked. That's one thing I got to say about that.
Yeah.
No, you don't walk away an episode. An episode was kind of weak. I mean, some things were not as strong, but you don't walk away saying, that kind of sucked, that episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I'm loving Better Call Saul now too. I really dig that.
Yeah, I watched that too. I'm starting to watch that too. That's awesome too. But I like him.
Yeah, I've always
he's really funny.
Yeah, it's really cool because I was always a big fan of Mr. Show, and to see him like later on like become like a pretty big star, it's pretty wild.
Oh yeah.
Talent is talent.
Yep.
Fortitude is fortitude. And you got it. You got it. You know what I mean? You suffer for your art, but that makes it more worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you like someone said like, well, just don't go. And someone said something that's recent to me, which was kind of cool. I can't remember, but it's like earning it. Like when you buy something and you earned it, it means more to you than someone giving it to you because there's no value in it.
Yeah.
So when you busted your ass and you finally reached that goal, you're like, man, I remember sleeping in my car, and now I got 10 of them that I can sleep in.
Yep.
But don't you? Yeah. It's like you guys, you're doing the same thing. You got a passion for what you're doing, and you're doing this podcast besides the other things that you do. So you guys are also versions of it as well. Greg too. Greg Lamberson too. I mean, Seb. We talk about Seb.
Seb Goat.
Yeah, to me, I made the joke that he was the abortion poacher child. If they want to, but I love Seb. But he's another guy that's really passionate about what he does. I mean, it shows, and it's kind of cool to still run into people that are so passionate about what they're doing. And it shows, and you just kind of get caught up into it because you just can't help but ride that wave. They're like, oh, this guy's really into it. This is really cool. And I want to stay with this guy because I love him.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so much fun.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to Are you going to be at the Buffalo, at Greg's Buffalo Festival?
Probably not. I start an episodic next Monday, and that's supposed to take me way into November, to be honest with you. Yeah, and unfortunately, and then we start SNL on the 29th, and I doubt I'm going to be able to go anywhere for a while. It would be nice. One year, I would like to go and hang out and just to kind of do that kind of stuff. And maybe, you never know. When is it again? When is it happening?
I think it's the first week of November.
First week. Okay, I can see where my life is going on there because I can probably take a train up there. It's only about 5 hours, or a plane is like 2 hours or something like that. Right. Go there, show my face. It'll put everything on Greg's credit card, and then get on the plane and come back or something.
Exactly. It'll be my first time there. Yeah, it's maybe my first time there. I'm looking forward to it.
That's awesome. That's cool. You should have a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Seb's going to be there, and we're going to do some kind of video together. That'll be fun.
Okay. Yeah, just, tell him I say hi. I mean, I'll talk to him before, but tell him I say hello.
Yeah. I just started doing the festivals this year. I went to Boston Underground Film Festival, the first festival this year that I've been to, and I had a great time. And then through that one, I went to in London just a couple weeks ago for Fright Fest, and that was a great time. And Buffalo will be the third one.
Now, did you go on the Jack the Ripper tour when you were there?
I did not. We did not.
That was kind of fun.
The webmaster for our website's in England, and he was like asking me all these things. Did you see? And I was like, no. And he's just like, what the hell did you even do while you're there?
I think everybody was doing that to you, Neil. I was like, did you go to the Tower of London? Oh man, I don't know if we're gonna have time.
No, someone took me there. I met a makeup artist over there, and she took me to this medical museum. Mm-hmm. That was there. That they had all this kind of weird shit, beginnings of medical. Oh, so you see all these instruments from like way back when, and all this kind of stuff. Like, you ever been to like the Muter Museum in Philadelphia?
Yeah, that place.
Yeah. It's kind of like that. A little. Let's say it's like that, but more English. Mm-hmm. If you know what I mean. It's a little bit more like not as in your face kind of thing. Things are like, so here's a two-headed twin, but he's dressed in nice garb instead of like hanging out in formaldehyde totally naked or something like that. But that was kind of cool. And then I didn't get to the Tower of London either. But I did get the chance to walk around, which was kind of cool. Mm-hmm. But next time, do the Jack the Ripper tour. It was kind of fun, especially when you get someone who's really into it, because they dress up in that Victorian garb. And they tell you the whole stories. A lot of stuff isn't there anymore because it's all modern London there. But some of the stuff still exists. So sometimes you're standing in the same place where they found these, the ladies. So you kind of get like, oh shit, they were right here. Ooh,
right.
It's kind of weird.
Yeah. Did you ever go to? I think it's a Museum of Death in Los Angeles or in Hollywood.
No, I've never been there. No,
it's really weird because they have a lot of. Like actual paintings from like serial killers. And so I really enjoyed it. It's the kind of thing that I'm into, but it is very strange.
I mean, I was thinking of myself, you had like John Wayne Gacy in prison. He goes, I can't hack that fucking guy to death over there. So, I'm going to take a painting.
It was really
a clown and a dead body in the corner.
His painting is there, a self-portrait of him as a clown. But there was one, I think it's the son of Sam. That's the one who the dog talked to him, right? Son of Sam?
Right, yes.
Yeah. And so I feel terrible laughing at it, but he had a cartoon strip he made, and it was how to catch and capture a fat lady. And it's like, at first, like, you go and buy meatballs.
We're just as bad. Everybody's laughing on this one.
And it was like, you go and buy meatballs, and all the meatballs have little smiley faces that he drew, and then you get a hoagie bun, and then it was basically like bringing the fat lady back to this, like, a house, and then capturing her and killing her. but it was all a cartoon. It was just like so bizarre. Like it honestly made me laugh, which like I said, I feel kind of bad about. But the whole thing was very. And then there was another serial killer. I'm not sure. I forget who he was, but he made like this very ornate. It was like something that would be on top of an old farm where it would move with the wind would go through it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all people having
vane
sex.
or something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And it was all people having sex in various positions. So it was very like, and he's probably some rapist or something. And then like when you're reading how he
and this was in prison?
Yeah,
you wouldn't think he'd be able to get his hands on a bunch of scrap metal and stuff to make something like that.
Reading how he made it over like 10 years because he would have to get like little scraps here and there that he would like steal and hide and then bring back to his place. And I was just like, man, this guy really he had the passion to make this. And,
yeah.
I mean, I guess beyond the stabby, murdering kind of thing, I guess hanging out with a serial killer wouldn't be so bad,
Might have some different insight on things.
So what did you do today? I bought some groceries, and I made some dinner. He goes, so did I, except that I murdered my neighbor and I put him into the stew with him.
I came up with a great way to capture a fat woman.
Right.
Were the illustrations good anyway? Was he like Crumb or something? Or
they were not like fantastic or nothing. It was just kind of the
not
idea.
Like stick figures or something.
No, it was a little better than that.
All right.
Like I just remember the meatballs all smiling, which made me
that's awesome.
laugh.
Then one of the meatballs were talking to him.
Yeah, maybe he would have been fine without them.
And it was. Have you ever seen Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer?
Yeah,
movie?
Yes, I have.
And the Tom Tolles character, I forget the guy's name, but it's like his buddy.
Mm-hmm.
So right, yes.
Yeah. So the real guys, both their artwork was there, but the guy Tom Tolles plays in real life is like subhuman. Like he's very not right in the head, and I mean he's like. And so his pictures were just like these like crayons that were just like madly just like scribbled all over the place with like faces. They were like disturbing to look at. Like you just saw that like clearly it was made by some madman.
Yeah, I guess you think. Because again, that guy's right in the head.
So yeah, the rest of the place they had like a Charles Manson room and also, but just that room alone is worth going to just to look at all the art of the serial killers.
Those guys making pasta. We need more sauce, more tomato sauce. There's less blood in there. More tomato sauce.
Well, Craig, I loved having you on. We do have some other guests coming up. But
yes.
We'd love having you here, and we'd love to have you back sometime.
Yeah, definitely.
That'd be great. Thank you guys so much. I had a blast.
I did too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It was great. Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I really, really appreciate it, and thank you again.
Thanks, definitely, man. Thanks for reaching out. Yeah, it's good talking to you.
Can I give a shout out to my Instagram?
Of course.
Is that all right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay. It's Craig, CraigLMKUP. Craig L Makeup. MKUP. I'm on Instagram.
Yeah. Is that your main like social media?
Yeah, I do Facebook too, but I mostly look for Facebook for like cat videos or political rants. Instagram is just to kind of see what other people have done. I mean, it's always like that. The art and the makeup and the sculpture that you see on Instagram that you don't get on Facebook. I kind of go on for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's good interaction. It's good to see what people are doing and get inspiration from other artists. It's really cool.
Very good. All right, it's good having you here. We'll talk to you again soon.
Good. Thanks, guys. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
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 Hello, this is Sebastian Godin. I am the director of Like Animator, and you are listening to Without Your Head.